Hi everyone, welcome back. We're going to do a standing yoga practice today, and we're going to play with some of the variables that you can play with if you're experiencing knee discomfort when you're doing some of these standing postures. We're going to work in Warrior 2 and Warrior 1, but a lot of this information transfers to other postures that you might be doing. One thing I do want to say is that if your pain is severe, if you have had an injury, if your pain is ongoing over an extended period of time, it's really important that you get checked out medically and find out what things are appropriate for you and not appropriate for you. I can't really do that via YouTube, and it's not my job as a yoga therapist to treat any kinds of conditions you might have going on your knee. What we can do is talk about if your knees are bothering you when you do a yoga practice, what are some of the things that you can adjust in order to have maybe a little bit more of a comfortable experience. So that's what we're going to play with today. You don't need anything. However, I'm going to be using a strap for one thing, just to bring some awareness to my big toe. If you don't have a strap, pretty much anything that you can put under your big toe to bring a little more awareness to it is great. I've done this putting a quarter under the big toe. You can put a little piece of blanket or a towel or whatever you've got underneath your toe. So I'll talk about that when we get to it. The other thing I have here is a yoga block and a wall that I can stand beside. What I'm going to do is put that block in between my leg and the wall. It does not have to be a block. So if you have a Tupperware container, fairly robust tissue box or another box, anything that you can put in that space, even a cushion would work. So I'm going to grab your stuff. We're going to come to stand. First thing we're going to do is just stand in what feels like a fairly natural position. Don't worry about Tadasana per se. And you're just going to notice what you feel. Definitely notice what's going on in and around the knees. Notice your feet, your connection to the floor, the distribution of weight through your soles of your feet. One thing about knees is knees are usually telling us about what's going on in our feet or what's going on in our hips. So we're going to be paying attention to those two areas as we go forward today. We're going to start by stepping your feet a little bit wider. One of the things that we can do that's really simple when we're doing our yoga practice is we can play with how we're positioning the feet and the legs and see if that's contributing to how the knees feel. So we have options here. We can go further. We can have the legs be a little closer together. We do want to make sure we feel like we can stand evenly on the bottoms of the feet. Other than that, you might make some adjustments to see how it feels. I'm going to lift up the toes of my right foot. I'm going to turn those toes all the way to the right. But as I do that, I'm going to be really conscious of my thigh bone moving in my hip. So sometimes what happens is there's a disconnect where the thigh stays and the foot is already moving a little bit faster. What is in between the hip and the foot? Well, it's the knee. So as I do this movement, I'm going to really pay attention to getting that movement to come from the hip so that the whole leg is turning. And then when I don't have the ability to turn further, I might let my pelvis go too. But I'm only going to do that if I need to. So really focusing on leg moving in the hip. Pelvis follows only as far as it needs to. The foot coming down. Now, conventionally we talk about how we align the feet with each other, but I'm going to give you permission to play. You can step this foot in more, you can step it out more, you can angle it a little bit. You're going to pay attention to how that affects your knee as you do this posture. So we're coming towards Virabhadrasana 2, Warrior 2. As we do that, we're going to make sure we stay grounded through the left leg. You're going to start to bend into the right knee. Now, if you have knee discomfort here, you're going to pay attention to that. You can bend as much or as little as you want here. And you're going to feel a couple of things. One is that as your knee bends, we want to feel both legs moving in the hip. So the pelvis stays relatively the same. It's moving sideways and down a little bit as this knee bends. I'm also noticing the angle changing at the back hip. So I need to open up here through the inner thigh to keep the pelvis at the same angle, right? So we want that movement happening at both legs. So you can pay attention to what the hips are doing. And then whatever amount you wanted to bend this leg, we're just going to hang out there. Now we're going to add something here at the hip to see if it makes any difference to how you feel. There's two ways to think about this. One is that you're pressing the upper thigh back, and you might even bring your hand here onto the top of the thigh and press the thigh bone back into the hand. So you're really working here through the back of the hip. The other thing you might think about is imagining you have a drawstring up the outer thigh seam of your pants. So you're tightening that drawstring, pulling from the outer knee up to the outer hip. You're drawing up. And as we do this, we want to make sure that the knee is going towards the middle toes of that foot. Getting a little work happening in the hip. You might see, does that change how your knee feels here? Taking some easy breaths. If you want to bring the arms up all the way into your warrior two posture, turn your gaze out to the right, you're welcome to do that as well. But we're really focusing on the lower body for today. Then you're going to straighten. You're going to think about moving from the hip as you come out. Then we're going to take the other side. Now ideally, you're going to practice the same thing on each side, maybe. But we're going to do something a little different on this side, just so you have an idea of what's available to you. So for this one, you might need something that you're going to put underneath your toe. The first thing we're going to do here is we're going to do the same movement to turn the left toes to the left, really thinking about this coming from the hip first, and then maybe the pelvis follows as much as it needs to. Okay? Now, this leg might be completely different in terms of how easy that is to find that rotation. So you're going to do what you need to do. And then I'm going to bring something underneath my big toe. So I don't even actually have to hold the strap. I might just bring the strap underneath the big toe of that left foot. So I have something that I'm feeling underneath the strap. Underneath the toe, right? And this is just to bring more awareness. So now I'm going to bend this knee any amount, thinking about it moving toward the middle toes of the left foot. And just like I did on the other side, I'm going to pay attention to what's happening in this back hip. Am I getting some movement here in the hips? I'm getting some stretch through the inner thigh. Pelvis stays relatively level as I come over to the left. Or as I come over to the left, it's hard to do. I have to think about it. As I come over to the left, is there some tipping that's happening through the pelvis, right? I'm trying to keep the pelvis the same. Coming into my warrior two legs. On this side, I'm going to play with how it feels to really engage the big toe. So I'm pressing the big toe down into the floor. I'm really pinning that strap underneath the big toe. I'm going to engage differently through the muscles of the feet. I'm going to see how that feels for my knees. So there's no reason why you can't do both. You could do that work in the outer thigh and the work in the big toe, but I recommend playing with one at a time. And this really is experimentation. So you're going to see what helps. And you're going to keep that. And whatever doesn't help, you throw that cue out. These are not things that everybody needs to be doing. These are things to kind of explore. So you're coming in on this side. If you want to bring your arms up and your gaze over to the left, you can. Or you can just be here and enjoying what's going on in the legs, paying attention to the hips and the feet. Still breathing. And then if you're engaging through the big toe, you're going to keep that engagement as you straighten the leg. You're going to lift and turn the toes from the hip, and then you're going to step the feet together. And you're going to take a moment to just stand and notice How are things now? How is your connection to the floor through the feet? How are the knees feeling? How are the hips feeling? So if you noticed it made a difference to press the big toe, that might be something that you play with in a bunch of other situations. If you noticed in this particular type of posture where you're turning one leg out, that it really helped to press the thigh back, or it really helped to imagine that drawstring. In other postures like triangle or extended side angle where you're doing the same thing with the legs, you might really play with what happens if you really get those outer hips activated. So that's some stuff that you can play with, if you like, in Warrior 2. When we come to Warrior 1 now, it's similar but different. So for Warrior 1, you're facing forward, and you're going to step your right foot forward, keeping your left foot back. Now here we have options. One thing is, depending on which knee is bothering you, is you can change the position of the foot. Sometimes that's going to give you a little bit more comfortable sensation in the knee. You can change the distance between the feet, right? So you can change the distance between the feet side to side. So sometimes these kinds of adjustments can make a difference depending on what's going on in your body. We're going to stay connected through this back left leg. As we bend into the front right knee, knee is traveling towards the middle toes. So whichever way you have the foot angled, you're going to try to send the knee towards the middle toes. And here too, we're looking for the pelvis to stay approximately the same. As you come forward, the back leg needs to angle back at the pelvis in addition to this front knee bending. Otherwise, things start to change. And there's nothing inherently wrong with any of that. But if you're having pain, sometimes it contributes. So you can see if you isolate, right, the position of the pelvis, bend the knee and really feel this other back leg reach back. Does that change how things feel? And it may positively, it may negatively, it may not at all affect it. So that's just information you need to know. And then you might here, again, press the big toe. I lost track of my strap, but if you found that helpful, you put the strap under the toe. You press the big toe here. You could see how it feels to imagine that you're tucking a tail forward. So imaginary tail between your legs, noticing how that feels. If you want to take your arms up, you can bring your arms up for the upper body of Warrior 1, or you can just be here. And then we're going to step the feet together. Now, just like we did on the other side, we're going to explore something different when we take the left foot forward. That being said, it's, first of all, we're just trying to find out, right, what happens. And if you have only one knee that's bothering you, you may want to explore these things on the same side. And then you're going to take that information, what happened, what helped, what didn't help, and you're going to utilize that in your own practice to support your body, right? So the other thing that we're going to do here, we're going to take the left foot forward. I'm turning my body around just because my wall is over here that I want to use. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my block, and I'm going to place my block between my left thigh, close to the knee, and the wall. I'm going to have my right foot back and my left foot forward. And I'm going to bend again my left knee, sending it towards the toes. So sometimes it takes a minute to get everything kind of lined up here so that you are connected through the block to the wall. The block gives you space to have shoulders because otherwise we don't get to have our arms out by the sides. So that's what the block is really for. And we're coming into this same position. We're thinking about, okay, that back leg had to move back, right? Pelvis is still aligned forward to the best of our ability. And then we're going to just press lightly this front knee towards the wall. Don't press really hard or everything will turn or you'll fall over, right? Just lightly pressing so we have a little engagement around the outer hip. You're going to notice how that feels. If you want to bring your arms up, you can bring your arms up. Okay, so this is one option. So working at the hip here, pressing the hip out. The other option is we're going to think about pressing inward. The best thing to use for this is actually a short foam roller, but I don't have one in this office right now. So I'm going to do it with the block to the best of my ability. Sometimes you need 2 blocks. Yeah, I don't get to have shoulders. I'm going to use 2 blocks, so I get to have shoulders. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the same placement. It's at the inner knee. The block is between the inner knee and the wall. And then I'm standing. And I'm noticing how I feel first. Maybe getting that little tuck in the tailbone, getting that nice movement through the back thigh. And then I'm going to press the leg in a little bit towards the wall. I'm going to notice how that feels. So here we're adding just a little bit of work at the hip. One, we're pressing out. Nothing's moving because the block is going to keep your leg still. But we're pressing out to get a little engagement in the hip, or we're pressing in to get a little engagement in the hip. And we're noticing how that affects how your knees feel. Now, some of us are going to find that when we do some of these things that we've practiced today, that you actually get knee pain. So that's not our goal. But everybody's knee pain is different. So as you're exploring, you're going to go slowly. You're going to notice, compared to your baseline posture, does pressing the big toe make a difference to how your knee feels? Does shifting the position of the feet or paying attention to how your hips and knees move, does that make a difference to how your knee feels? Does pressing the knee out or in, using the block or the hand or the drawstring analogy, do those things make a difference to how your knee feels? Sometimes even doing postures that stretch or strengthen the hips before you do some of these standing postures will affect how your knee feels. Sometimes massaging the feet or stretching the feet before you do some of these postures will affect how your knees feel. So I hope that this video inspires you to do a little experimentation. As you're experimenting, move slowly so that if something doesn't feel right, you can stop right away. Make sure you're cleared to do the things that you're experimenting with in the video. And then take that information, what helps, and see how you can use that, right? Maybe doing what you're doing at the hips is actually what affects your knee pain the most. Maybe what you're doing with your feet is actually what affects your knee pain the most. And if you find this really overwhelming and you're not sure what to do next, then get some support from a knowledgeable professional, a yoga therapist or physical therapist who can help you sort out what's going on in your unique individual body. I hope this was really helpful. If you have questions or you want to share your experiences, I'd love it if you did that in the comments. I will read those and respond to those for sure. And I hope that you really enjoy exploring the variations that we have for some of the basic standing yoga postures. Thank you so much for sharing your practice with me today. Take really, really good care. And may we all be balanced and well.